it's always about that means of production.
It is.
That's how wealth is really built, is owning some type of there's plenty of ways wealth gets built, but that owning the means of production.
I mean, that's kind of how, when I wanted to go into the Inca stuff, we were going to look at that. Like the whole idea that like these people had a monetary system in a sense of basically you give labor to the consolidated government or whatever you want to call the Inca Empire, and then the Inca Empire just gives you all the things you need to sustain life. And within that, system, they just had a hierarchy, and you could have a certain number of wives if you were high up on the hierarchy. You could have still hierarchical systems, and
I mean, all systems are hierarchical.
There was still like a central government too. It was just you didn't pay for things.
Really? And so how do you decide? So you just have to go to the government or whatever. I guess they probably didn't have like a government, like a parliament. It was probably just like the the royal.
You'd be surprised that it may not be as articulated as we have it today, but I'd assume that the structures are pretty simple. You have a place where the people who are all the wise men or whatever, the people who make the decisions meet and they hash out the decisions, and you have like a representative there that you can go and talk to about your issues and stuff like that. It's been like that since the ancient Greeks and stuff like that.
And this was also, not super duper long ago. We're talking when Columbus landed, within 30 years, this empire had fallen. But before that, the Inca started around like early 1400s or 1450s ish. So it's like they had a pretty good run. They had about a 100-year run before their last emperor fell. And within there, they had this really cool modern system. Well, not cool modern system. It's just like
for the
they
time.
just didn't use money. It was just interesting to me.
Oh, interesting to us.
So it's actually an old system.
The emperor. So it was a king, though. They had a king, and he was sole ruler, and he was the most powerful person. But like you said, I'm sure he had a cabinet.
Yeah, if you want to go to my actual
document, I was in there. Did you?
If you go down, I got this cool blurb here. So we're talking about the Inca, and we're talking about their monetary system or lack thereof. So I found this really cool blurb. Unlike the Aztecs or the Maya, which are other just ancient civilizations around there, the Inca did not use beans and textiles and stuff like that to sell products. There's no concept of money in the Inca. They managed to create the largest and wealthiest empire through a highly regimented system known as mita. So from the age of 15, Incan males are required to provide physical labor to the state for a set number of days, sometimes as much as 2/3 of the year. They built public buildings, palaces, extensive systems of roads. That's the Inca roads. They're very famous. They linked the empire together with those roads, so it expanded. So this was all just feeding into their expansion, which was why they were so successful. In return, after you gave the government your mita, they provided you all the basic necessities of life: food, clothing, tools, housing, all that stuff. There was no money changing hands. Even if there had been money, there was nowhere for them to spend it. You did not have shops, markets, or malls.
Wow.
However, the Incan society did value the massive piles of gold and silver sitting beneath their lands. They used it for their religious worship and things of that nature.
The sweat of the sun. And silver,
correct.
The tears of the moon.
Gold is the sweat of the sun, and silver are the tears of the moon.
That's amazing.
Yes. Something else I learned about
And they
Inca.
didn't. It says that they didn't value.
No, he's
money.
saying that's not to say that the Incan society didn't value.
Oh, because they did.
Yeah,
okay,
it was
so
a
they
double
did
negative.
fuck with it.
Yeah, I was just jumped over it.
Yeah.
But another thing about the Incas that's really cool, they had a numerical type of system of keeping track of their history, but they did not have the written word.
So there's just number based, of recording events.
Knots on strings.
To
Simulate passages of time, transfers of labor, all these other things they had. And it's great. If you go into the Inca Wikipedia, you can probably see images of this.
That's fascinating.
I can't remember the exact name of what they're called, but it's the way that Inca, and it's been lost to history too. That's the thing. The conquistadors came and they burned a lot of these records, but the records exist.
Not record.
Holy shit.
Was a method used by the Incas and ancient Andean cultures to keep records and communicate information. In the absence of an alphabetic writing system, this simple and highly portable device achieved a surprising degree of precision and flexibility.
So this was their idea of an abacus.
Essentially.
No, but
it was more of a record.
Yeah.
It was a record. It was like having a little notebook you would keep things on, except it
like
was
you can read. It probably breaks down, like we were talking about how I don't forget what conversation we were having where every language has a numerical value to it as well. Like how the Greeks actually don't have alphabets; those are numbers too. You know, like that's not actually letters.
They're like they serve the same purpose.
Even in our alphabet, like each 1, 2, 3, 4 to 23 could represent a letter, right?
That's true,
so that's kind of how it is.
And
you count these knots and that kind of.
And that just
could be all
it's like
these
a code.
things. Yeah,
You read it.
I thought of it as Morse code.
Yeah,
I thought of it as binary or some sort of like A and
Similar.
B, A and B type thing.
So I have a quick question about this. Did the Inca? You said this is like they started in like the 1400s and stuff like that, and I know that they're more like Europe in the 1400s is not really comparable to the New World in the 1400s. But did they have any like other goods than just like life necessities? Like, did you have like you had like Incan jewelry and stuff like that? Because I'm just wondering, like, if there's nowhere for you to spend any money, and like because based on the description that you read in that little blurb, all that seemed to me was just like indentured servitude or just like slavery. Like, I don't see what the difference between that and then like owning a slave is. You build somebody else's roads, you build their palaces, you build their public buildings. They give you food and clothing and shelter, and that's it. Yeah. And then there's no money. There's like, I mean, I feel like you just described slavery there.
Well, that's the same thing as debt. You're describing debt as well. It's like this idea.
I thought the same thing.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I mean, we have the same system.
If they have like, because like like she's like ordained with like she's got.
But it's the same question I was asking.
And because
it's like, how do you solve wants? Like, what do they do with wants? Like, my question was pretty much similar in the sense of what do you, like you said, they give you everything you need, but what if you decide, hey, I really
like one of those necklaces.
Yeah, I want an extra shirt.
How do you get that?
I need extra shirts.
Go to the marriage tab. Because that really showed me with this Inca thing. I was like, oh, that's funny. So in the Inca Empire, they're talking about the age there, but it was typical for marriages to begin on a trial basis with both men and women having a say in the longevity of the marriage. If the man felt that it wouldn't work out or if the woman wanted to return to her parents' home, the marriage would end. Once the marriage was final, the only way the two could be divorced was if they did not have a child together. Marriage within the empire was crucial for survival. A family was considered disadvantaged if there was not a married couple at the center because everyday life centered around the balance of male and female tasks. They talk about this up there too, about marriage being like labor. And I've heard this in talks about the origins of capitalism before. They talk about marriage and the barter system.
I've heard this.
And things like that too. It's like an economic factor, marriage.
It's a transaction. It's a contractual transaction between two parties.
Yeah, and it's forced labor though too. So it's like the contraction's almost like in a lot of different cultures, like I'm now gaining labor. I have a labor thing now.
I have a labor thing now.
So I can now have a farm because I got somebody who's going to tend all my shit, or I got, it's
just I see what you mean. As far as like in old times, like normally you would just get a helper. Like when you marry, like you would just get somebody that would do a bunch of shit.
It's like having kids. You know what I mean? Like, dude, having kids and owning a restaurant, that's free labor, And so
you're not allowed to employ your kids at your restaurant.
Bullshit.
And that's technically illegal.
Other people are not allowed to employ your kids at your restaurant. You can employ your kids anywhere you want to. That's chores. It's not employment. It's chores. Go in there and wash the dishes. Those are chores.
Is it?
Dude, are you kidding me? Like go in any small business right now, anywhere in America, your family runs the business.
The child labor laws
literally Gary Vee talks about working
the child labor laws are also really lax in a lot of places. So you could work on a family farm if you're 12. Like that's
because it's not labor. You're not.
I don't know.
I was just. You can tell it's like saying it's illegal to spank your kids. Because that's assault. It's like you could try if you want to, but that's a hard case to bring about. You get to choose. So, anyways, my point is that's kind of what you're getting at too. Once you become married, one of the things that I point to often, me and Jessica talk about this often, is why we're in a good financial position based on a lot of people who are my age who are not married. And, like, that's the only thing. Like, we have not made good financial decisions in our lifetime. I have not been good with anything. For all accounts and purposes, I should not be doing as well as I am. Mm-hmm. But the only reason we are is because we've been married for 10 years. And so I told her, that's when we were sitting here and doing our goals, I was like, it's really not a goal for us to make X amount of dollars because we made that even back in the military. But that was just because we were a 2-income household, you know. So we've always been able to do that, and so it is like that. It's like this multiple, like there's something inherent about the fact that it's easier when you take two people's output and mash them into one. Like you only need one.
Yeah,
right,
and in this very specific system, which is based around labor and the division of labor and who goes and does the labor, as opposed to a marketplace where you're paying for a special tunic. In this system, now marriage is even more important, and they've taken it to the level of like everybody's gonna get married. We're gonna have trial marriages. You can go as far as because the state, the state is literally telling you like, we want you to be a happy, productive piece of labor, and we want your family to do so, and we want you to have kids, and we want you to do it back home, and we want your kids to be here at our capital getting training, and then going back home to expand our empire. Like when you get into the minutia of what the Inca did, the Inca roads, how they used to set up their shrines and temples, because they didn't have marketplaces. So they'd go to these new places with monetary systems, conquer them, and then be like, yo, here's our shrines, here's our temples. We're going to be nice to you, but we're going to rule you. Send your kids back here. Have some kids with the indigenous people from our land side of the Andes.
Yeah, we're
mix in your ethnicities.
Yep,
they used to band children's heads to get elongated heads to separate ethnicities. So they would separate, like if you were from this certain tribe or area, and you were going to intermix with Inca, like the Inca who came and conquered you, they would like separate your ethnicities at birth, like with like birth tactics. It's crazy. They were a very interesting culture.
Yeah.
And the conquistadors showed up. It said, nice culture. And just wiped them out. Yeah. Disease, gunpowder, horses, all that shit. They couldn't handle that.
So was it the case? Would you say it was the case then that their value system was just different, where it wasn't like their regular people didn't want like consumer goods, I guess?
They definitely were not a consumer-based system at all. It was more so about like...
Well, you say that, but then the you know, like the people at the top definitely seem to have some nice-looking tunics and necklaces and shit.
There was a monarchy, like kings and
That's
stuff.
That's what I'm saying.
That was all. Those were all religious adornments and stuff. Like these were things that were used to denote your status, not I wanted this fancy uniform, or like, you know what I mean, like I get the fancy things in life because I'm like the powerful guy. This is like you wear gold so we know you're the powerful guy. You know, it's like,
I mean, I see your point. I see your point too. Yeah,
because I'm just trying to figure out how that worked. Because like you said, it was at a certain time in history that I know that there were things like crafts and stuff. Like it's not like before crafts and stuff when you were just a hunter-gatherer and everybody just worked together.
There was an economy tag that might give you a little bit better of a...
The Sapa Inca was conceptualized as divine and was effectively head of the state religion.
Well, I didn't want to go into
the will. Well, I mean, I think that pushes a good key to the situation here. Not only was this guy the ruler and he was just telling you what to do, but he was also your spiritual leader. So then you were also, we've talked about that, like how...
I mean, but that's how it always was. I mean, there was no difference between that and the King of England. The King of England's the king because it's ordained by God.
But you've seen how willing people are to work for free for their God. Like,
no, I know. Yeah, I mean, that's why heads of states have always used gods in their history
we're trying to
establish themselves.
We're trying to get to the nitty gritty of how did they, what did they value? What did they want?
That's what I'm saying. I was
this is what the states provided, and this what did they want? But if you're working for your God, then a lot of times you don't want anything. It's just honors provided onto you. Like it's a. I know you're asking him like John knows. I'm trying to help answer because John wasn't there. Neither was I, so I'm trying to read. And you're all like, well, what did they want,
Tell
John?
me how the Incans work, John.
I don't. Who knows?
You went back there, didn't you?
You know what I'm saying?
Did you do any research for
the
this?
blurb?
My answer.
And you're all like, John, tell me right now.
My literal answer over here that I was thinking about before you kind of took over was like, this is a great area for us to do some later research. Like I was thinking in my head, like I want to know more about the wants and needs of the Incan people. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know that stuff. So I was trying to read. But bro, there's an economy tag too, and like that one got me all super psyched.
And I want to get to that facts because
I just read all this. It's cool.
Everything you were saying is the same thing I thought. I said, well, what if I get that. I was in the military, so I really get that. When you walk up somewhere and they're like, here's your standard issue, and you say thank you, and you walk away. All right? So now, but I'm like, well, in that situation, in that society, what if you say, hey, I need an extra jacket? Do they just Oh, that's fine. Yeah, here. You know, thanks.
Here's an extra
You
thing.
did. You're one of our most valued workers. You get whatever you ask for. Or was it like you get what we say you get? Move along.
Yeah.
And then, or were they a very I don't know, reverent society where they did not care? Like you said, they were just like
you were the jacket you got was just like oh,
yes,
thank
like
you.
know, like they could have been a society that was
It's
just
true.
based on such gratitude for being a part of the system, or bought into the idea of pushing the kingdom as much as everybody else. So they were just doing their part. You know what I mean? I don't know. We haven't seen that really play out in a lot of communist societies, right?
The reverence for the religion or the it might be more love for the state in some communist things.
Because, dude, North Korea, I've watched a lot of North Korea documentaries and stuff. Now, these people could be brainwashed. I'm not saying they're not, but listen to them talk about it, right?
Oh yeah, dear
It's
leader,
like,
and they look at them like a god. Yeah, absolutely.
You bring an interesting point in though about like where did they just get what they were issued and were they happy for it because it was coming from God, or was it more so like, hey, can I get a red tuna?
Yeah, right.
My trial wife looks so good in red.
Red, you know, like,
I would really love it if I could have
she has
a
an
red one.
elongated head because she's from the South Andes.
She really likes
looks
red.
great in the red.
The red accentuates her long head.